Greetings and welcome, one and all. I am DRWolf, and this evening I am joined by Brawny Buck. You want to say hi, Brawny?
Greetings, everyone. How are you doing?
Brawny has been going through quite the difficult past year, I must admit. He and I have been having a number of conversations, particularly over this past month. I've been hearing a lot about his situation, and I wanted to invite him to this live stream this evening because, one, I wanted everyone in the audience to hear about what he's been going through and the decisions that have led him up to this point, and let people know about the fundraiser, which you can see in the description here under the video. And two, I wanted to get into a discussion about credit cards and debt in general, because Brawny and I share many similar feelings about debt, and we're hoping to educate a number of people who might be watching this video after the fact. So, Brawny, tell us what you've been going through these past several months.
Well, it's not even a past several months thing, more like a past several years, but things has really started getting out of hand. I think, let me see, where's a good spot to start? 2015 was when I got sick of moving all over the country looking for work and decided I'm just going to take my parents' advice and go back with them and try to get myself, try to reestablish myself, get a career going again, and work from there. So I went back to New York in late August or early September of 2015. And something else that I touched on in the video that I made announcing the GoFundMe was that my family has had a major problem for longer than I can remember. And a lot of people misunderstood is no, I have great parents, but the problem with my family is my eldest brother. Just a terrible person. There's really no light way of putting it. And I got up and I was driving up there and saying to myself, I have done everything I can to help him and stick up for him and be kind of the advocate that prevents fights between him and my parents. And he's driven away everybody and alienated everybody in his life except his siblings and our parents. If he's going to keep acting like that when I get up there, I'm done. And sure enough, I get off the road after driving for 22 hours and I walk in the door and he's having a fight with my parents about something completely arbitrary. And I stepped in, tried to keep the peace, and he very quickly escalated it to a physical fight, which I very nearly lost. And it ended with blades being drawn. So there's a pretty high chance that I wouldn't be here today if it didn't end the way that it did, or certainly one of us was going to go down. So we were promised, or the family was promised by my parents that after that was the last straw. Everybody seemed to be in agreement that was the last straw. We weren't going to put up with it anymore. I let him go because I was about to cross that line myself for the safety of my own family. And but my parents convinced me to let him go on the promise that was the last straw, and we were finally going to get rid of him. So I said, okay, but then it never happened. And it was another 2 years of dealing with that. Then fast forward to 2016-ish. And I had another one of my brothers, also an older brother who's actually been in a couple of my videos. He was in most of the live action ones that I've done. And he was gonna go into business with me. We had a plan that I still have a lot of faith in, but it's one of those things that can't be done alone. It was, you know, a massive amount of, it was a financial undertaking and a big investment and a big risk that we were taking. We knew it would work, but I couldn't do it alone. All of my brothers seem to have this problem. I don't know why none of my parents' sons came out right, but he chose to make a bunch of irresponsible decisions involving drugs as well. Thank God he's not nearly as violent as my eldest brother is. But every time I turn around and say, okay, I've got contracts signed here. We've got a lot of money on the line. We've got to start getting our products off the ground. What are we going to do? He'd be like, okay, I don't have the money for it. Well, I've already promised a bunch of people everything, so I'm just going to have to go in myself and hope I see a return here. Then he gets his girlfriend pregnant, and so he's like, okay, I got to step out entirely. So now I'm shouldered with, and that ended up being about a $4,000 ordeal. And I was like, okay, yeah, you do what you have to do. You go get your family started. You know, this sucks, but I'll be okay. And of course, the adventure didn't work out because I was trying to handle it myself, and it couldn't be done just with me. I needed at least the help of 3 other people, all of which backed out on me. And then I come to find out that even he, despite being on the verge of starting a family on his own, is still off spending all of his money on booze and marijuana. And there was something else that he kept blowing money on. And it was at that point, I was like, okay, I got no friends up here in New York. My brother I got one brother who's threatening my life on a regular basis, threatening me, oh, I'm gonna, tell CPS that you molested my daughters, or I'm gonna come over there and shoot you, or the next time I see you, you're gonna be dead. And I got another one who's just completely taking advantage of the family, and then my parents decide, when my eldest brother gets kicked out of his own house by his housemates for being a violent, dangerous person to be around, they decide, oh, we're gonna let you come back and live with us. And I said, no. And I really hate breaking the, gosh, which one was it? 6th commandment, doctor? You would know that probably better than I. I really hate going against my parents' wishes, but I had to be like, no, you can't do that. He is extremely dangerous to all of us. And and their response to that was, okay, well, you'll just have to go somewhere else then. So where am I going to go? I don't have any friends up here in New York, so I'm out of the house. While they take him in, and it's like, okay, I obviously don't have a place here in New York. So I started making plans to go back to Florida. And the reason why I wanted to go back to Florida is because that's where I went to college back in the early 2000s, and I met a lot of friends down there, and just especially among the Brawnies. The Brawnies have been the only actual friends I've had my whole life. Like, I can actually count on them for things. They're good people that don't try to start fights on such a regular basis. It was just a very, very peaceful time. And I got involved in the fandom in early 2012 when everything was really, falling apart for me, and all the close calls I had in my line of work. I don't know how much detail you want me to go into here, but there was a lot going on with me between 2012 and 2014. And yeah, I'm really, I attribute it to nothing short of divine intervention that I'm still alive. So all of that considered, I just wanted to be around my friends again. Additionally, still is the cost of living between New York and Florida is substantially different. By the math that I was doing, I would have needed to make a minimum of $18 an hour just to make ends meet up in New York. That's taxes, average rent, food, gas, car insurance, health insurance, which was mandatory, up until the recent election. What else? Cell phone. If I missed anything, oh yeah, and of course the student debt from college, which I believe is somewhere in the vicinity of like $34,000 for me right now, which isn't nearly the worst number I've ever heard, but still pretty up there. So between all of that, the calculations I was doing for New York were like $17.25 to $18 an hour. There is no job, and I will just straight up admit this, that there is nothing I am qualified for that's going to pay that much. And I was also working in childcare, which had this really oblong work schedule of like 5:30 in the morning until 8:30 in the morning. And then I had to go back after school, which was 2:30 in the afternoon until 6. So I couldn't even stick a second job anywhere in that opening time. And really the only good thing about that was that I had plenty of time in between to work on videos. Because everything that it would have started, every other normal shift starts overlapping to that. And no matter what I tried, I couldn't get another potential employer to reconcile them. So there was no way I was going to be pulling $17.25 to $18 an hour just to make minimum. But by the same token, the taxes and cost of living are much lower in Florida by almost a quarter by some of my calculations. So between that and wanting to be around friends again and just wanting peace to return to my life, I was like, yeah, I got to get back to Florida. So I've also had numerous health issues that I've been dealing with since 2013, and I got sick of dealing with the fact that it hurt to exist all of the time, mostly due to a scoliosis that I had, which, if you don't know what that is, it's when the spine is bending in a direction it's not supposed to go. And mine wasn't too bad. There's 3 stages to scoliosis. I was cusping on phase 2, which is where your spine straightens out and the discs start to fuse together. Plus, I was crooked in about 4 different spots. So I just decided, okay, I'm done. I'm going to fix my back. I'm going to fix my car. I'm going to just fix a bunch of stuff that has been broken for years and years and years. And I'm packing up and I'm getting the heck out of this state. And that's where I am now. I had debt left over from the failed business attempt with my brother last year. Just fixing numerous small catastrophes as they came up. I was, trying to keep a Crown Victoria that had 200,000 miles on it on the road. I ended up needing to get a different car. That car needed some repairs in itself. The chiropractor was about $1,500. And so I finished up the school year so I wouldn't have to burn a bridge with the child care that I was doing, because you don't want that on your resume if you ever had to burn a bridge, especially with your most recent employer that you worked with for 2 years. And headed down to Florida, and God was with me, that day. And as soon as I got down here, I had 2 interviews, and both of them offered me positions, which I took. And then as soon as one of my past employers heard that I was back in Florida, he called me up and gave me an offer for even more money, because apparently he's been missing me ever since I've been gone. Couldn't find anybody that could work quite as well as I could. So I ended up picking 2 out of those 3 jobs. And right now I'm in a position where I'm working about 60 hours a week, and I got a day off, 1 day off during the week, which I dedicate to making my videos now. And I'm taking about 500 and change, like somewhere between 500 and 550 a week, which is plenty. I should be, if my calculations are right, I should be able to live comfortably off that, making all of my bills and even starting to pay off the student debt. The problem is that I carried that $5,000 credit card down to the South with me. Now the original plan is I collaborated with a bunch of my friends down here, and I was going to, one of my other friends was getting herself a house, and she said, hey, just come to this house and get yourself back on your feet. But that process is taking much longer than originally anticipated. Like, I thought I was going to be out of a house for 2 weeks. It's been 2 months. And the result of doing that and working the schedule that I work, it's I have no place to store food is the biggest problem. Before, when I was living on my own, I had it figured out. I could spend usually less than $80 and be set for a month. I eat very little, and I know where to shop, and I know how to cook and things of that nature. I can make things last. So $80 a month had me covered on food, and that's a high estimate. But if I don't have a place to store food now, and I have no time to go shopping and get cans, because most places are closed by the time I get done with work, or I'm just dead on my feet, then I gotta hit a gas station or a fast food place every day, which, on top of being extremely unhealthy, and why is the personal trainer at the gym look so dead on his feet? It's expensive. It's between like $6 and $10 a day. So now I'm spending more in a week just keeping myself fed than I did in a whole month the last time I lived in my own place. So what's happening now is, even though I'm making $500 a week consistently, and for this foreseeable future, I'm spending like $300 a month on food. And then, let me see, how many times do I refuel? And refueling my car is about $50 right now. So I got to do that once to twice a week, which ends up being like $250 to $300 in fuel as well. So with all of that considered, I'm spending the money just as fast as I'm making it. And with the credit card debt being that big, it's going to be very difficult for me to find a place that I can afford and also make minimum payments. Because something, and you can probably attest to this with your experience as well, is that credit card debt is not designed to ever be paid off. It's designed to, the minimum payments are percentages. So if your minimum payment is 10% of whatever the total is, then even as you get down to $1, the minimum payment is still going to be a dime. And it just increments from there. So the minimum payment is designed so that it never pays off the credit card, and they do that because they compound interest. Am I correct?
In part, yes.
Yeah. So that's the and I'll feel free to correct me at any point here. But so that's the situation in a nutshell right now. I can't pay off the credit card because I got to keep myself fed and getting to work. And with the credit card being the way it is, I'm not going to be able to afford a house. So I'm getting caught in this loop of not being able to afford getting myself into a place of my own because of the credit cards, and I can't pay off the credit cards because I'm not in a place of my own. I know that I just spent the last 25 minutes throwing an awful lot of information at you, and for that I apologize. So any questions on that so far?
Well, it was important that everyone be made aware of everything that's been going on with you, Brawny. I mean, it's quite a lot to take in at once, but it was necessary. Honestly, I'm sorry that you had to go through even half of everything.
Yeah, it's been unfortunate, but I've been making videos, and I started making videos because I thought I was on my way out. I did not think I was gonna live through 2014, because that was when everything was at its worst. That was the first time I was out of house. That was the first time I was out of the house, and I was still walking on a cane because my spine and my hips and my shoulders and my neck and gosh, everything on me was so messed up. And yeah, I didn't have any friends either, but I got involved in the fandom, and through the fandom I met the Central Florida Bronies, who have taken me in on two or three separate occasions now. And the making videos and trying to do something constructive with myself in what I thought was the tail end here, it actually gave me the strength to, it kind of revitalized myself. It gave me a purpose again. So even though it's been that bad, I have had a line of support that I didn't have before.
Did you guys hear me? Sorry, my internet seemed to have cut out for just a few moments.
Oh, goodness gracious.
How much did you guys miss?
Yeah, what was the last thing you heard, Doctor?
I don't know. I was in the middle of talking, and then I realized my internet was out.
Oh, goodness. I didn't even realize you were talking. I was rambling again about...
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was rambling again about how much the Bronies had helped. You said, so the last thing I heard out of you was, it's unfortunate that I had to go through even half of that. Did you say something afterwards?
I tried to, but I guess you didn't hear any of that.
All right. Sorry. Well, what did you say? I care more about that right now.
Okay. There is solace in keeping yourself busy.
Yeah.
That as long as you have something to work on, you can find reason to keep getting through day by day.
Right.
I can understand that feeling. And quite frankly, I can admire that you at least had a plan in place before you moved out of New York. That it wasn't just, well, I remember that Florida life was a lot better for me, so I'm just going to go down there and try and hook up with friends I had down there, and I'll see how things go. You at least had a plan in place before you started moving down there, and as you said, you finished out the work that you needed to do while you were still in New York.
Right. And that's definitely, I can attest to a lot. And Eve, I don't know how many times you've seen it, but within our own fandom, I think I could probably name 2 or 3 different times where someone was just like, okay, I don't want to be in this spot anymore, so I'm just going to go over there with no plan, and then surprise, surprise, give it a month later, and they already need to get out. Well, it's because you went with no plan. What did you expect to happen?
At any rate, I can also admire that you are not taking this lying down either. You are keeping extremely busy with a 60-hour week work schedule. Between 2 jobs, was it?
Yeah, technically 3 if you count making videos, but I don't know how much we can count making videos. I'm also subcontracted out of 2 or 3 different companies, 2 for wedding photography and 1 for sports broadcasting.
Mm-hmm. So yes, you have done extensive research in finding every means of employment you can while in Florida. And the reason why you are reaching out now is because you have exhausted every option available to you right now. And it's not that you are lacking anything else you can find. It's more that you're in a hole that you simply can't dig yourself out of by yourself.
Correct.
And it took quite a bit of effort to even reach out to others in the first place, like you said in your first fundraiser video.
Yeah, because I come from that. This is going to sound weird in 2017, but I come from a warrior clan, and we very much have that sense of honor, you know. And what was that one episode that was just recent? That was recently the Pinkie Pie visiting Yakistan. I haven't been so good at
yes,
it.
okay. It's hard to remember
that episode was driving me nuts right up until the very end, and then I said, "Did you just make me relate to the yaks?" which is true. Those, like, the way that problem got solved is pretty much exactly how my family handles things, and that's what I was raised in. And in the recent years of traveling as often as I have, I've realized that that's not terribly a good thing. It has its merits in some cases, but if you apply it like the yaks did, you start having the problems that the yaks did. And so I had to, even though I consciously knew that, it was still a bit of extra effort to physically break the habit of dying with honor.
Well, I hope dying isn't the word you're looking for right now, but
not right now, but wasn't always the case.
But I suppose the yak comparison is, helps people understand what you've been putting yourself through.
Yeah, that was the aim here.
All right. You and I have been talking a great deal over the past month because you were asking for advice on what to do next, not just for putting together this possible fundraiser video, but how to get out of this current hole.
Yes.
And I was asking a lot of questions. Well, what is it that got you to this point to begin with? And what other options have you been researching? What kind of work schedule are you keeping nowadays? And those kind of things. And yeah, I can understand why you felt like you're kind of stuck.
Mm-hmm.
It's more than just kind of in your circumstances. And even on top of everything else, Florida as a whole is not doing too well over the past couple of weeks, honestly.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't know what Miami is like right now, but they got it the worst. The last time I saw a picture of Miami, there was 15 feet of water 3 blocks in downtown Miami there. I live in Orlando. Orlando got grazed. Orlando's wind speeds never breached 40 miles an hour. It really wasn't that bad. Bunch of people lost power, but that's more of an infrastructure problem than a storm problem.
Yeah, okay. So you haven't had too much flooding over there then, have you?
No, we didn't. I was expecting us to get 8 inches of rain, and we didn't even get that.
All right, then. Well, I'm hoping that most people will be making a recovery soon, but
yeah, I got a lot of friends with
months, honestly.
I got a lot of friends that are going on day 3 of power right now, and it's frustrating to watch that and not be able to help.
Yeah. Okay. So I did want to talk a good deal about credit cards and debt in general.
Yes.
I have had a great passion for financial management for many, many years now. That's one of the big reasons why I became an accountant.
Mm-hmm.
Managing finances has been more than just a hobby. It's been a career path for well over a decade now. And quite frankly, from our discussions, you and I share many similar feelings about credit cards and debt in general. And I'm hoping that we can help educate some people in our audience who may be a little curious and others who may be struggling themselves.
Right. Yeah, that would be incredibly helpful, not just for me, but yeah, for the other people, because I don't know how many people we're talking to here, and I believe your subscriber count is somewhere in the 70,000s. But I could imagine among all those people, I'm not the only one going through either some kind of abuse problem or some kind of financial deficit problem.
Yes.
If we can help other people, figure out how to get out of where they are, that would be amazing. Because I looked through all the comments of the fundraising video I put up. A good 90% of them are, "I want to help, but I can't. Here's why." And that's, I'm more saddened by the fact that they are in their own financial straits, much more so than not being able to help me.
Admittedly, much of our audience are either teenagers still in high school or 20-something college kids who have already been accumulating quite a bit of their own college debt that they have to deal with.
Right.
And it's understandable that they can't raise money for a GoFundMe just out of the blue. Makes sense.
Yeah.
But there is still something that I'm hoping that we can spread a little message.
All right. Lay it on me, doctor.
Okay. I'm going to start with something that may be a little hard for people to grasp at first. Avoid debt like the plague.
I hear that.
This is a quote that I have heard many, many years ago, and something that I have held true for my entire life. That when you are looking at debt, it is something that you need to treat as an illness that spreads so quickly that you have very little control over, that you need to keep from getting into your life to begin with. Avoid debt like the plague. And the biggest issue with debt to begin with is that anyone who is offering something like a credit card is that they make it look so easy. They make it even look so essential as part of being an adult. A lot of financial institutions like banks talk about credit scores, that you need a credit card in order to build a proper credit score so you can one day take out a loan for your college or your home or your car or something like that, that you need to use a credit card every month in order to build a credit score.
And I can attest to this. When I first went to college, that was one of the first pieces of advice that my mother gave to me was, get yourself a credit card and start building some credit.
I can attest that that is not as true as people like to claim it is. It is not as true as so many people try to claim it is. I went through my entire college career without accumulating any kind of credit card debt at all.
Wow.
I went through my entire college career without ever needing to take out a car loan at all.
How'd you do it?
I applied for a loan on a house, and I found out, oh, you don't have a credit score because you haven't been paying with a credit card. And you know what happened?
Tell me.
with some finagling here and there, they gave me the loan anyway.
Interesting. So then the question that immediately comes to my head is, what kind of finagling did you do?
Well, for one, my lady had a credit score.
That helps.
That did help, but they tried to get a credit score out of my father, who was out of work at the time, and I said, no, that's not going to help. All they really needed was that I needed to prove, hey, I've been holding down a steady job for years. I can show you, hey, I've been pulling in a steady income for years. That's what they cared about most.
And that's when you get down to it. Whenever you apply for a credit card or a line of credit of any kind, that's the first question they ask you. Can you prove your employment? Can you prove how much you make in a given amount of time, usually either a month or a year?
Yeah. There are credit card companies these days that do not care whether or not you have a job. They do not care at all.
Well, yeah, because they get more out of you somehow that way, don't they?
Mm. They want to find anyone who they can get debt payments out of one way or another. At any rate, though, there are two things that I believe are worth going into debt over. Just the two: your education and your home. That's it. And I know a lot of people are going to think that sounds extremely harsh. Like, how can anyone live like that? How can anyone possibly make that work?
Mm-hmm. Which is understandable, because not a lot of people have several $1,000s for a car laying around.
Yeah, here's a way that I want to talk about, because I've never made a car payment, and here's how. My very first car, it was a 1992 Geo Prism with over 200,000 miles on it.
Oh, geez. I wanted to apologize for you as soon as you said Geo Prism.
Yeah, it was a very, very old car. And it didn't look like much from the inside or the outside. But you know what? It worked.
I'm glad it did, because my grandmother had a Geo, and we spent more time under that thing than we did in it.
Yeah. I have never made a car payment because I invested in a car that only cost me $2,000 to begin with.
Wow.
And you know what happened with that car?
What's up?
Everyone told me that, oh, that car does not look good at all. Why are you still driving that car? And I said, because it works, because it gets me where I need to go. And honestly, I was very gentle driving it around. I wasn't the kind of person who really needed to get where I was going in a hurry. But you know what? I treated it well, and it treated me well.
Yeah,
every time something went wrong with it, I decided, you know what? I'm going to invest a little bit more and see how much longer it lasts. I'm going to invest a little bit more and see how much longer it lasts. I needed to replace left front axle. I needed to replace tires as per usual. I needed oil changes as per usual. I needed to update the brakes. I needed to make sure that one of the front headlights was replaced, little things like that here and there. And every now and then people would tell me, you need to replace that car. You need to replace that car. And I said, give it time, give it time. I loved the fact that I did not have to go into debt for that car. I never had to make a monthly payment for that car. And every time I didn't have to make a monthly payment for that car, that was hundreds of dollars every month that I could use for other things. that I could save away for something else every month. I had that car last 9.5 years. And I was still able to sell it for over $500. It was still working at the end of that 9.5 years.
Wow.
I kept it for that long, and I was very gentle with it. And I was focused on maintaining it, but most of all, I wanted a vehicle that I never had to make a payment on. I was more interested in repairing rather than going into debt over a vehicle. The car had over 200,000 miles when I bought it. And by the time I sold it, it had nearly 260,000 miles on it.
Oh,
but
wow.
It still worked.
You don't drive that much.
No, I didn't drive that much. The longest I would ever drive it was to Idaho and back a few times here and there. And that was like 600 miles round trip.
Yeah, I see. I got myself a new car because the one that I was driving, it was a 2001 Crown Victoria with nearly 200,000 miles on it itself. That thing just stopped working. I couldn't even steer it anymore. A breeze knocked me off the road one time. If a breeze knocks you off the road because your gearbox is so loose, you got to get a new car. That's at least the way I saw it and the way everybody else saw it. So I got a new car for that right away. The Trailblazer that I'm driving right now had 100,000 miles when I got it. Now has 115,000 miles on it. I've had it since March. So I do a lot of driving.
I want people to just think about this for a moment. Let's assume that you are making car payments. Let's say it's something middle of the road, $200 a month car payments. There's people who are paying more than that, people who are paying less than that, but let's say it's $200 a month.
That's about what I'm paying right now.
It's $2,400 a year. And over the course of 5 years, that's $12,000. You're paying $12,000 in car payments. Whereas if you weren't making those car payments over 5 years, what could you be doing with that $12,000? It's the same thing with credit card payments. How much are you paying every month, especially minimum credit card payments, just to keep things going? You need to think about your debt not as, oh, I'm just going to make this one payment for this short of a time span and not have to worry about it until next month. It's more like, think about it in the long term. If you're making credit card payments regularly of $200 or $300 a month, then it's the same thing. You're paying over $10,000 over the course of 5 years.
Indeed.
It adds up.
And then you got the interest. And you got the interest on that too. Which adds to so you end up paying much more than you initially owed if you just do the minimum payments over a long period of time.
Yeah. Interest is made to look very small when you're looking at a single payment, that it's just a minuscule amount compared to the total debt that you have on hand. It's going to end up costing you more than the total debt on hand. It always is going to cost you more than the total debt because creditors are encouraging you to make those minimum payments so they can collect more in the interest than what they're collecting as what they've loaned you out in the first place.
Okay, so that's what I was trying to say earlier.
Yeah.
And that's a clear way of putting it.
Yeah. Now, imagine it this way. Instead of making monthly payments on a credit card at a couple $100 a month, what if instead you were saving that away and earning interest on what you're saving instead of paying interest on taking care of a debt? What if it was working for you instead of working against you?
Okay, so how do I do that?
Well, you need to be out of debt in the first place, but the same principles apply. The sooner you get yourself out of debt, the sooner you can start saving towards something that you need to buy. But making more than the minimum payments on your credit cards is saving you that much more in interest in the long term. It's like when I was making mortgage payments on my house, every time I was making above and beyond the minimum payment required, I was doing calculations. I was only saving myself maybe $6 or $7 per month by making extra above and beyond payments, what I was required. But calculating it out for the year, it ended up I'd be saving anywhere from $72 to $84 per year by making that extra payment for just that month. For the entire year, I'd be saving that much more per year, $72 to $84. And if I was doing that every month, then I'd be saving $72 per year. And the next month, I'd be racking that up to another $144 per year. And then on top of that, $216 per year, and so on and so forth. If you're making extra payments on top of what the creditors are asking you to make, you're saving that much more in eventual interest payments. Think about it that way.
Okay. Yeah, and that's a pretty easy enough concept to grasp, at least I think it is.
Yeah.
So
I feel especially passionate when I talk about how do I put it? Let's think. I keep hearing people, especially in the United States, talk about how impossible it is to get out from under their debt. That it is simply a fact of life. Why fight it?
yeah, and that's a combination of a lot of things. Ultimately, the shortest way to word it would be our culture. we've got a culture that's built itself around that concept, and it really does affect the quality of life for a lot of people. So the sooner we can figure out how to break that, then the sooner we'll all be back on our feet and not have to worry about these things nearly as much as we do.
Yeah.
I'm actually not worried about my car. It's the credit card that's holding me back. Because of what I explained earlier. When I get through a month, I might have made a $1,000 to $1,500 dent in that credit card debt, but I've spent nearly that much just trying to feed myself. So, and that would be my next question: is what do you recommend? Is there an alternative course of action for people like me? Is there anything I could have done differently to avoid this? To avoid getting in this, because it was the way I treat the credit card for as long as I've had it. And I first got a credit card in 2011. And it's always been emergency. If I don't have the cash on me and something terrible has happened, that's how I get myself there. And I try to keep it to something that I can pay off at the end of the month. And right up until 2016, I had absolutely no problem maintaining that philosophy. So what do you do when you have to spend that much like I did?
I imagine that given your circumstances, there wasn't much you could do in those moments to avoid those circumstances. But the way you were discussing things before, I was reminded of something else that I think would be very relevant to the discussion here.
Okay.
How much are you paying yourself every month, Brawny?
Define paying myself. I know you've talked about that in a video one time, and I'm racking my brain trying to remember exactly what
Yes.
you said. So I'm just going to ask you to define it again.
This was mentioned in a video on how to be financially independent that I put out sometime last year, I think.
Yeah, we should link that
Yeah.
to the description.
And I'll mention it here again. How much of the money you earned 2 months ago is still yours? And how much of the money you earned 6 months ago is still yours? And how about a
Not a
year ago,
blasted dime.
2 years ago, that kind of thing? How much are you paying yourself?
Oh, I think I remember this now. Was it
Yes.
saving? It was
Yes.
it was taking a portion out of what you're making and just sticking it in a shoebox somewhere.
No, it's not
Metaphorically
just,
speaking.
it's not putting it in a shoebox. It's more, the phrase is 10% of what you earn is yours to keep. It's not yours to spend, but yours to keep. And that's a concept that people don't usually understand, because when people get their paychecks, they think, well, I'm paying myself everything I earn. I get to decide how I get to spend it. And they're kind of missing the point. If you're spending everything you earn as soon as you earn it, then you're not really paying yourself anything, are you? You're just getting stuff. And how important is that stuff to you?
Well, I'd like to play Magic the Gathering, but I could live without it. It's not that big of a deal.
How important is that peace of mind when you pay yourself 10% of what you earn? It may not seem like much now, but
right. And that's what I was going to interject with, is that it feels really good in the short term, especially in our culture, which quite frankly is a tad materialistic. To okay, I got a few extra bucks. I can go get that pack of playing cards that I wanted. But then you have nothing, and yeah, that's fine. But then you run into an issue where you need to get yourself a new car, or you need to spend $1,500 to have someone straighten out your spine in 4 places.
yeah.
And you don't have that $1,500 anymore. But if you had abstained from the material, you would have, and it would not have been a concern.
If you had that habit long ago, then yeah, you probably would have been able to take care of fixing your spine without much issue in the moment. You wouldn't have had to go into credit card debt to take care of your medical bills. That's what you were getting at.
Yeah, it was medical bills on top of a few other things. And the other question I should ask, because this was part of the situation that I put myself in, was I was also trying to make investments. I was trying to start a business with my brother. And
Yeah.
I was and I've needed other tools since then, and so things of that nature. So part of it was I shouldn't even say spent. I should, when it comes to credit cards, I should say that I borrowed that money thinking that I was going to be making it back right away.
Yeah. It's easy to look at credit cards and think that it's only this much now, and I can take care of it when I earn it back on such and such day. It's so easy when it's just a little bit here and a little bit there. And that's why credit cards have become such a widespread issue across even the world, is because it's so many small amounts that rack up into one huge amount, that when you look at the bill at the end of the month, you realize, oh my goodness, I really did spend that much.
Is there any hope for people who are paycheck to paycheck and they don't even really have the room in that between all of their bills to give themselves that 10%. What do you do in that situation?
Here's another little trick that I think does make a difference. Get yourself a register, a written register, not something you put on your phone, but something that you will physically write in. And every single time you buy something, no matter how big, no matter how small, you immediately open up that register, pull out a pen, and write down what you bought, where you bought it, how much it cost, what day, and put in how much that cost and divvy up the total, what your current bank account total is after that purchase. You do the math yourself, and then you realize in that moment, okay, I've got this much left to spend. And then the next day when you purchase this and you purchase that, okay, I've got this much left to spend. Even though you're still spending your money and living paycheck to paycheck, it's actually encouraging your brain to learn a habit, to start thinking, okay, I've got this much to spend. Okay, I'm going to remember I've got to buy this and this. I'm going to start learning this habit of knowing I'm at this much money and I've got to last until this day. Hey, if I don't spend this here, I'll have a little bit extra by the time I get to my next paycheck. And little by little, bit by bit, kind of the opposite of what happens when you have a credit card, it tilts in your favor. And over the course of a long time, it tilts more and more and more in your favor because you're building a habit and realizing, I don't have to spend as much as I thought I did when I used to not have this register, because I'm taking far more notice of how much I'm spending and where I'm spending. It's just building better habits.
Yeah, my concern was more on the front end of the budget, just what bills I have to make, and maybe that's just the mentality that I have. I know some people think of their budget as this is much I have, this is much, this is what I make, this is how much my bills are, and here's what's left. I kind of put them in the opposite order. I always think of it like these are what my bills are, so I have to make that much, and then when I make that much, then I treat it as what's ever left to get saved or to get to pay off whatever other nonsense I'm dealing with.
Yeah. A lot of people seem to think that their biggest issue of getting out of a financial hole is increasing their income. Whereas far more often than not, the biggest hurdle of getting out of a financial hole is taking better control of their spending. 9 times out of 10, it has to do with spending more than income.
Okay. That's going to be a difficult one for a lot of people to wrap their head around.
Yeah. It may be very small changes that you can make at first. It may feel like, well, I can only do this one little tiny thing that I can make a change in, and that's barely going to affect anything. So why even try? It's like a snowball effect. You start at the top of the hill and you're starting to roll this down the hill, and it seems so tiny at first, but you got to start somewhere and you got to keep moving that ball down the hill. It gets bigger as long as you keep moving it down the hill.
All right. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
It always looks tiny at first.
All right. And I think that's, yeah, I don't have any more questions myself.
Yeah.
I am. Are we live? Is there a chat going on with any comments?
Oh yes, there's a chat going on right now. I've been looking at chats here and there while we've been talking the whole time.
Yeah, I apologize. I would have been doing that myself as well. I just never got a link and forgot to ask for it.
Oh, well, let me link it to you in Skype right now if you want to take a look.
Of course, of course. But the main question of that was: are there any questions in the? Are there any questions in the chat that we could address?
There might be a few. We'll take a look and see. There's a bit of a delay for what we say and how long before chat actually hears what we say. So we'll take.
Yeah, I knew about that. I believe it's usually about 10 seconds behind, if I remember correctly.
Would it help if someone keeps 2 register notebooks, one for savings, one for checking? It depends on whether you are actually touching the amount of money you're putting into savings. If you're only putting money into savings, then it won't help that much keeping a register for savings. Just know how much is in there, check it every once in a while. Checking is really what's going to make the difference in the long run, because checking, you got money coming in and out constantly. Any other questions we got in here? I got somebody asking about college debt. Let's see. How do you deal with trying to go into college and college debt? Well, first of all, there are helpful means of college debt. What you want to find are government subsidized loans. And what that means is, as long as you are attending college, the government is going to pay the interest on whatever loans you have taken out. And you won't have to pay interest on that money until 6 months after you stop going to college. That's what I did when I went to school. I racked up over $10,000 of student debt myself. But I didn't have to pay any of that, and I didn't have to pay interest on any of that until 6 months after I graduated. And by that point, I was able to start working, even though I didn't actually start my career until nearly a year after I graduated, but I was able to pay that off.
Well, you're still better off than I am. I'm just finally starting to get something regular back under my feet here, and it's been 4 years.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's been a ride. Here's one that we got. What do you think is the #1 mindset to avoid when building a foundation for proper budgeting?
The mindset to avoid when keeping in mind for proper budgeting. I'm going to say the mindset to avoid is, another quote that comes to mind is keeping up with the Joneses.
Oh, yeah.
You know what that, have you heard that before, Brawny?
Yeah, I know about that.
Keeping up with the Joneses, it means because your neighbor or your best friend or a family member has this thing, that means you need to have it too. Because you see this amazing new, wonderful item that someone has just bought, that means you've got to have it too. It's an endless cycle of making sure that you're keeping up appearances, because somebody else has it, you got to have it too. And that puts so many people into an endless cycle of debt upon debt upon debt, because there is no end to that. There's always going to be another new thing that you got to get.
Yeah, so you can just take that desire to have the newest iPhone and put that somewhere unpleasant, because for goodness sakes, it's less features for more money. You don't need the gosh darn phone.
Yeah.
That's me making jokes, though.
If you can push aside that mindset of keeping up with the Joneses, if you can push aside, I have to have that because other people have that mindset, that will help your keeping yourself in a budget more than anything else, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And then in the chat here, we've got Sweetie Bloom trying to start a fight with me. And right below that, my friend Cruiser Brawny is asking, do you need a credit score in real life? And you talked about that earlier. He might not have been in there, though. So do you, can you summarize that real quick?
There are certain cases where a credit score can help. But the way that banks and credit card companies talk about a credit score and how important it is, they are way overstating just how important it is. Way overstating it. It's not as important as people say it is. It's not even remotely close. You can get a decent credit card score, a decent credit score, by buying a couple items a month on a credit card, very small items with a credit card every month, and immediately paying that off every month and keeping that up for several months. But what they want you to do is use your credit card every day and hopefully go into debt over it so they can make their money. That's why they put so much focus on you got to have a great credit score, is because they're hoping, hey, you'll use your credit card a lot. That's the whole point.
I'd like to tackle this question here. I mean, oh gosh, I probably shouldn't, though it was directed at you, but I feel like I got something to say for this. So we'll both tackle it. This guy says, Dr. Wolf, how do I deal with stress? Because this subject and others I need in life scare me, and I'm scared that I'm going to fail in life. So it was directed at you, so why don't you answer that first?
Well, you go ahead first on this one. I'll wait till you're finished.
Okay. That do not underestimate the power of your choices. People do all kinds of crazy, amazing things that you would think would be impossible simply because they chose to persist on it. I apply this philosophy to just about everything, stress management included. Fear does not do anything for you more often than not, unless you need, the only thing fear can really do for you in a practical setting is help you identify danger. But a lot of people get stressed with fear of failing and things of that nature, because they recognize that fear, but then they let it take over them. You've just got to say, okay, this is dangerous. This is a dangerous situation that I'm looking at, and things could go wrong. But if you're worried, if you let that take over you and you stay stagnant, then whatever you're afraid of will most certainly happen. Not only will it happen, but it'll happen way worse because you're allowing yourself to grow. I find acclimating yourself to situations which cause you stress will make it easier to deal with that stress in the future. And then as you add a little bit more, you can take on more. And this is much of what I did growing up, and I still do it to this day. And a lot of people, say I live up to my name pretty well, but that's because I've thrown myself at things that scared me. And every time I overcame, then the next time I had to do it, it was that much easier. That's why I say things like strength is a choice. So regardless of if you're stressed out about the situation at hand, if you're worried about the future, you've just got to, okay, the fear has done what it's supposed to do. You recognize the danger. Now you need to discard it and be able to just tackle the challenge. Go about it with, some air of self-awareness so that you don't go in recklessly without a plan like many people do and then end up hurting themselves. But don't let it stop you from taking the action that you need to take. Dealing with stress is about tackling it head on. Doctor?
All righty. I'd say some effective methods of dealing with stress is first, breathe in, breathe out. I do that a lot. I usually follow it up with, it's good to be helping. A lot of people know me for that one. But breathing is good. And another effective method that I hope people will remember is count your blessings. Name them one by one. Think about how many ways your life is going well for you. And it may be difficult at first because when you are in a stressful situation, it is difficult to think of anything but what's stressing you out right now. But if you can take a few moments to breathe in and breathe out and think about how blessed you are in life, how many things that you are grateful for, how many things you can be appreciative of, and think of how many wonderful opportunities you have been given instead of what you have been denied. Perhaps it may put your life in a bit of a better perspective.
Okay, rewind it back. We lost you for a while there.
Oh, you lost me for a while?
Yeah,
Oh, did I cut out in the middle of that? I thought I was on a roll.
you cut out. You cut out at the beginning of it.
I cut out at the beginning of that? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was on a roll.
Okay. So get back in the zone. I want to hear this roll. I want to hear this roll. We lost
How
you.
much did you hear? I got to.
We lost you at breathe in, breathe out. It helps to say,
Okay.
and then we never got the answer.
All right. Well, let me try starting again.
So listen to this.
You breathe in, you breathe out. Oh, you heard the whole thing? Okay, everybody heard the whole thing. Sorry.
I didn't hear the whole thing. I guess the stream heard it, and I just lost it for some.
Okay, did the stream hear everything? I see a whole bunch of comments saying people heard the whole thing.
Okay.
All right, so Lightning says that she heard the whole thing. She's messaging me on Skype. So it must have been just you, Brawny.
All right. Someone hit me on Skype and give me the cliff notes.
Okay.
Okay. We got this one here. That's, I think, is a real good question to tackle here. I'd pass this one to you. At what point do you file bankruptcy? And then right below that, somebody asks, what if a friend or family member is spending your hard-earned money and putting you in debt? So can you tackle the first one?
Bankruptcy. I'm trying to imagine a situation where I would ever advocate bankruptcy.
Yeah, because it doesn't really do that much for you, does it?
It really doesn't. You'd have to come up with the most grave of circumstances before I'd ever advocate bankruptcy. I'd try to think of any other option before I'd ever consider it. I'd go through every possible circumstance that could get you out of that decision first. Bankruptcy is not something I would encourage.
Okay.
And sure, there are circumstances where you really don't have a choice in the matter, and there are circumstances where I'm glad that option is there, but don't consider that an option. Don't think that that's a way to get yourself out of it, because that's not the kind of mindset you want to have. It really isn't.
Sounds defeatist to me. Then right below that, Samantha Powell asked, what do you do when a family member or friend puts you in debt by spending your money on unneeded stuff? And it's quite possibly because of the family situation that I described at the beginning of this stream, with my brother that was, stealing from my family, and they were just letting him get away with it. But I want to say, just cut him off. Get them out of there. They're not going to. Do not let anybody Zephyr breeze you. However, I know being the Christian that I am, that forgiveness is a thing, and it's a very important thing, and that there are usually ladders of escalations to take before you get to the worst possible outcome. So do everything you can to avoid pulling that trigger if you can avoid it. So talk with them about it. Try to get them to demonstrate some empathy, that they're hurting you. with this kind of thing. If that doesn't work, you're going to have to create a consequence for it. It's going to have to be a negative consequence that you're going to have to enforce. Just remember what we saw Fluttershy do during Flutterbrother, because she really didn't. She followed that ladder of escalation almost perfectly. And if nothing works, you've got to cut them out. You've got to cut them out of your life before they drag you with it. It is much better to amputate a limb that's infected than have it kill the whole body.
She still believed in him after he had given up on everything, though.
Indeed.
She wasn't willing to have him sponge off of anyone anymore. She wasn't willing to put up with his lazy attitude anymore, but she wasn't giving up on him either.
Right.
She wasn't giving up on him.
She was able to convince him to put down the effort that he needed to put down. And when he did, he was forgiven and welcomed back. And I try to do that for just about everybody, but don't let them bring you down. Don't cast your pearls before swine. There are people out there that it is their goal to take advantage of you as much as possible. And if you're trying to help them when they are unappreciative of that help and have no intention of getting back on their own feet, then you're not going to be able to help people that actually deserve it. So that's the warning that I give.
All righty. Well, let's see. How much time have we got? I think I want to keep this going for maybe another 10 minutes. If you want to find another question for us, Brawny.
Sure. Let me take a look here. Let's see here. What did Lightning Bliss say? Okay, I'm not sure if that was a question or not. Is it a good idea to save money in a jar for whatever reason you're saving it for? Because that's what I'm doing it right now. Okay, so I made a joke earlier about putting 10% of your income in a shoebox. That was just a metaphor. This person is actually asking if we should do that. What do you think about just putting cash away in a piggy bank and physically holding on to it?
Physically holding on to your money doesn't make a whole lot of sense these days. It really doesn't. Keeping it in a bank makes far more sense. It really does. Just find a local community credit union and open an account there.
All right. So as long as 1932 doesn't happen again, we should be fine.
You're worried about banks going under, huh?
Not terribly, but that was what happened. And both of my grandmothers were teenagers when that whole thing went down, and they never trusted banks again after that. They actually physically kept their money hidden.
Oh, it seems that Brawny's voice is cut out for a bit. I'm guessing he must have internet trouble. I'm sorry. Well, let me see if I can find another question for us. Now let's see. Dr. Wolf, as an accountant, have you ever looked up on some good stocks and bond sites? If so, what are your words about them? I used to trade on a website called Scottrade, and I was actually pretty good at it. I had a lot of fun with it, and I actually made money off of it. I just enjoyed buying and selling things here and there and keeping track of the market and trying to follow trends. And hey, there was even a time when I thought I could make a career out of it. But then I found out the hard way how volatile trading on the market is, how incredibly unstable it can be, especially because The year I was trading was from 2007 to 2008. And let me tell you, in particular, September and October of 2008, I lost everything I put in the stock market from September and October of 2008.
I think I'm back.
Yeah, you're back.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so the theory here is that the thunderstorm that went on today is messing with the Wi-Fi over here.
Right. I'm sorry. Anyways, I was actually talking about a stock market story.
Oh, okay.
I was actually investing in the stock market in
Gambling?
September and October of 2008
Oh, oh God, why? I'm so sorry.
because I didn't know that that was going to happen like the rest of the country. Most everybody didn't know that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, that was our version of 1929.
Yeah, it was our version of 1929. I was in a position to where even if I lost everything I invested, which I did, I wasn't going to lose the shirt off my back because, hey, I was debt free at the time. And hey, I wasn't supporting a family at the time. I was just a single guy working as an accountant, and I didn't have any major expenses. A lot of other people were certainly in dire straits in 2008, but even though it was very painful for me to lose everything I put into the market at that point, it taught me a very, very valuable lesson.
Yep. So we're just going to take all this money and put it into the stock account, and it's gone.
No, don't. Do not look for the shortcut. Do not look for the shortcut solution, especially when it comes to making money. Focus.
Okay, so what do I do with all these lottery tickets I bought on the way over here?
Focus on the long-term solution when it comes to making money. Focus on the very long-term solution. So when I focused on the short-term solution by buying and selling stocks in the market, it was a lot of fun. And during that first year, I actually made 40% return. 40%.
Wow.
I did really well that first year. I was having tons of fun. And there were other people who were saying, oh my goodness, you've got something going on. Hey, you want to tell us the next time you're going to invest in something so we can do it too? And I said, okay, sure. I'll let you know. And that also got other people who were investing along with me to lose their money too.
Oh, good. God, that's terrible.
Yeah. It taught me to never, ever take the short-term solution when it comes to making money ever again. So it was hard to learn that lesson, but it's something I'm going to hold on to for the rest of my life and something I'm going to encourage everyone to learn for the rest of my life. Do not look for the short-term solution when it comes to making money. Ever. Ever, ever, ever.
All right, so I think I got what you're telling me here, doctor. I think what you're saying is that I should quit my jobs and put all of my faith in AdSense.
Sure.
I'm gonna make all that YouTube money.
YouTube is not my primary source of income. It's not even my secondary source of income. It is a hobby, strictly a hobby.
Right, and I've given all kinds of people that advice as well, because that's a question that I've gotten over the years, and my first response to getting that question is how do I get successful on YouTube, and how do I make AdSense work for me? It's, well, I don't monetize, I don't do that because I know it's really not going to do a whole lot for me. And also, why are you coming to me? I've got a pretty modest audience, so things of that nature. And even though it's a lot bigger than I ever thought it was going to be. And GoFundMe doing as well as it has in these couple of days is extremely surprising. I would never rely on it because it's way too fickle. It's way too fickle. And even if you have an audience in the hundreds of thousands, the odds of you making enough to live off of it are slim. And
Still with me, Brawny? I'm guessing the storm must have had issues with his Wi-Fi again. Okay, well, anyways, YouTube revenues are very fickle indeed. And I'm glad that YouTube is not my primary source of income or secondary source of income. And it's something I do for fun more than anything else. And it's helped me to meet a lot of very wonderful people and be a part of this wonderful fandom. That's what really makes it worthwhile to me.
Brawny's getting upset.
Okay, Brawny's getting upset, and he's back.
I'm so sorry about that. We didn't expect it. The Wi-Fi here is usually really good.
Well, Florida is having all kinds of infrastructure issues. I can understand that Wi-Fi wouldn't be that reliable right now, given everything else that's been going on.
I brought my curse with me. I should have known this was going to happen. It's not the fact that it's Florida or anything of that nature. It's that I had the audacity to come here and just ruin everybody's day with my mere presence.
All righty. Well, we've got maybe a couple minutes left before I want to close the discussion. Is there anything else you want to end our live stream with, Brawny?
Gosh darn. Thank you guys so much for, those who have contributed to the GoFundMe thus far. If you're able to, oh snap. In the time that we've been doing this live stream, it's gone up almost $100. $100, 95 to be precise. Which is, great. Thank you guys very much. Back when I first started this, I never expected to get any kind of audience at all, and now I'm, cusping on 7.7 thousand subscribers here, and I've been able to reach out to you guys in this time of need and have you respond so well. That's just amazing. To summarize what I'm doing with the fundraising here for those who are joining us late, it's I just need to put as big of a dent as possible in that credit card, so I can, I pay that thing off as big as chunks as I possibly can. Like I do like $1,000 to $1,500 on it a month. And if I can clear it by the time I am in a position where I'll be able to find my own place, which I'm expecting to be the middle of October, then I won't have anything to worry about, and it won't get in the way of me finding a new place. There's about $5,000 on there right now. If we can get that up to at least $3,000, then I'll have it completely paid off by the time October is over. So here's a link in the chat to the. Oh wait, no. There is not a link in the chat because YouTube does not allow me to put links in the chat.
Yeah, that's what YouTube does, but there is a link directly in the description.
Yes.
So that's easy enough to find.
If you guys want to contribute, Countess Marie Rose, if anybody knows who that is, if not, just look her up on YouTube or DeviantArt, is offering character sketches for anyone who donates over $10. So just you can show her your receipt, and she'll be willing to do that for you. And if there's anything you want out of me, if there's anything I can do to repay you for your generosity, just let me know, and I will do my best to make that happen. I've also, recently updated my Patreon. If you want to help through there, and if you donate through Patreon, then you definitely get something in return. Like before I came to do this live stream, I got done teaching video editing to some patrons who want to make their own content better. So, but more than anything else, thank you guys so much for being willing to help. And thank you, doctor, for having me on so we can have this discussion. And hopefully we've helped some people today.
I'm glad that I get to talk about these things. I feel really passionate about this subject in particular. I don't think enough people talk about debt and all of the dangers that come with it, honestly. And I'm hoping that you're able to take this next step towards your life in Florida, Brawny.
Thank you very much. It's already looking really good. The fact that I'm surrounded by friends now, and working regularly in a supportive job, doing the things that I love. I'm, personal training over at a gym, and doing photography. These are the two things that I could never imagine giving up as being in fitness.
Might have cut out once again. I'll give him a minute, hoping that he might be showing back up. But I did want to thank everybody for dropping by. And let's see. Be sure to visit the GoFundMe page and give his first YouTube video a watch if you want to hear about his story about how he ended up in Florida. And let's see. If people want to hear more discussion about money management and getting out of debt, there is so much more I can get into, because I got into accounting because I think a lot about financial management. It's just the way my mind is wired. So there is much more that I would love to teach if people want to learn. So think about it. Let me know. And as for everyone else, I hope that you've all enjoyed the discussion. And as per usual, I am Dr. Wolf, and on behalf of Brawny Buck, we look forward to hearing from you.